President Donald Trump announced that Matt Gaetz, representative from Florida, would be his selection for Attorney General, which was a proverbial pimp slap to the deep state and a nuclear warhead that exploded all over the DOJ. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, a word of warning. A word of warning. There was a hoax yesterday on X, a hoax that permeated, discussing the false claim that Tucker Carlson was appointed as White House press secretary. Somebody doctored up a phony press release from Mar-a-Lago with the Trump Vance Transition logo, and it reads, "I am honored to announce that I have named Tucker Carlson to serve as White House press secretary. Tucker has a distinguished career in traditional and broadcast media," yada, 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 yada. This media outlet, or this media hoax rather, was picked up and retweeted and shared by several 100,000 people all over the world. It is not true. Community notes have been added, and we now realize that this is not an official statement, which is just a reiteration of why it's so important that you only get your news from a trusted source of information. If you're looking for information about Donald Trump's transition team, if you're looking for information about what's happening in the Trump administration, if you want to know what Donald Trump is doing and how he's helping to make America and your life great again, then you need to listen to this podcast every single day. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit follow. Make sure you're setting the notifications, because we are bringing you the news direct from the Trump administration to my mouth and into your ears, so that you know the facts without the spin, without the propaganda, without the lies, and yes, without the hoaxes. Now, of course, as we mentioned earlier, Matt Gaetz, the firebrand Florida congressman, as they like to call him, from Florida's 1st district out there on the Panhandle, was selected to be Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General. This, of course, is a Senate confirmation position, and that will be the biggest hurdle that Matt Gaetz has between now and the time that he takes over at the Department of Justice. Matt Gaetz has been a proponent of Donald Trump's agenda. He's been anti-deep state, anti-big government, and he has caused a stir not just with Democrats, but with many of his Republican colleagues, because you may remember Matt Gaetz single-handedly led the charge to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Matt Gaetz also has attacked Republicans and Democrats in the Senate who have invested in stocks and said that should be something that is illegal and not allowed under Congress rules. He has also attacked fundraising practices of his colleagues, on both the left and the right side of the aisle. He says that it should be illegal for any elected official to go and work for a lobbyist after they leave office, because there's a revolving door of Congress people and politicians who, help these lobbyists and help these special interests while they're in office. And then when they leave, they go get cush positions with massive bank accounts and expense accounts and private jets and all kinds of vacations in Cabo and that kind of thing. So he is not making a lot of friends in the government, and now Donald Trump wants him to lead the Department of Justice. The official announcement came just after Donald Trump's meeting with Joe Biden, which we'll discuss here in just a minute. "It is my great honor to announce that Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is hereby nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States." This is from Donald Trump's Truth Social in the official statement. Matt is a deeply gifted and tenacious attorney, trained at the William and Mary College of Law, who has distinguished himself in Congress through his focus on achieving desperately needed reform at the DOJ. Few issues in America are more important than ending the partisan weaponization of our justice system. Matt will end weaponized government, protect our borders, dismantle criminal organizations, and restore Americans' badly shattered faith and confidence in the Justice Department. On the House Judiciary Committee, which performs oversight of DOJ, Matt played a key role in defeating the Russia hoax and exposing alarming and systemic government corruption and weaponization. He is a champion for the Constitution and the rule of law. Matt will root out the systemic corruption at DOJ and return the department to its true mission of fighting crime and upholding our democracy and Constitution. We must have honesty, integrity, and transparency at DOJ. Under Matt's leadership, all Americans will be proud of the Department of Justice once again. Now, that is Donald Trump's official statement on Matt Gaetz. As you can imagine, there were people on either side of the aisle that that were not overly happy with Matt Gaetz' selection or were concerned about his ability to get through the confirmation process. John Fetterman, Democrat senator from Pennsylvania, had a very solid summation of what he believes Matt Gaetz' appointment or Matt Gaetz' nomination by President Trump means to the Democrats.
I mean, I would describe it as God tier level trolling to just trigger a full-on China syndrome to own the libs in perpetuity.
Yeah, to own the libs in perpetuity. That's what Donald Trump did with the selection of Matt Gaetz, which will make him even more likable and more desired by the MAGA conservatives and the base who elected Donald Trump to be president for a second term. Here is Matt Gaetz really establishing his agenda on stage at a TPUSA event a few years back.
Seems like every time I turn around, they're engaged in surveillance or list building or monitoring, and I don't care if it takes every second of our time and every ounce of our energy. We either get this government back on our side or we defund and get rid of, abolish the FBI, CDC, ATF, DOJ, every last one of them if they do not come to heel.
It will not be an easy confirmation process for Matt Gaetz. That is 100% certain. But if and when he does get through, that will be a boon to Donald Trump's agenda to weed out the weaponization in government and to end the corruption in all of our top institutions like the Department of Justice, not to mention the FBI, the CIA, and all those other agencies that Matt Gaetz just announced. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, and Senator from Ohio, also weighed in. He said the main issue with Matt Gaetz is that he used his office to prosecute his political opponents and authorized federal agents to harass parents who were peacefully protesting at school board meetings. Oh, wait, that's actually Merrick Garland, the current attorney general. I like a vice president who's got jokes. I'm a big fan of that. There was another very high-profile nomination yesterday. It was Congresswoman and Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard. President Trump announced that Tulsi Gabbard will serve as Director of National Intelligence. For over 2 decades, he says, Tulsi has fought for our country and the freedoms of all Americans. As a former candidate for the Democrat presidential nomination, she had broad support in both parties. She is now a proud Republican. I know Tulsi will bring the fearless spirit that has defined her illustrious career to our intelligence community, championing our constitutional rights and securing peace through strength. Tulsi will make us all proud. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has had a really interesting path to becoming Trump's DNI. Her director of national intelligence, or his director of national intelligence, rather. Tulsi Gabbard, as you may remember, was a Democrat congresswoman from Hawaii. And she was the only Democrat to refuse to impeach Donald Trump the first time around. That put her on the outs. You can't not impeach President Donald Trump as a Democratic representative. Nancy Pelosi doesn't take too kindly to that, so she immediately became an outlier, and eventually she left Congress. She ran for president against Joe Biden in 2020. You may remember she had a moment in the sun where she put Kamala Harris in her place, which is not that difficult to do when you're debating Kamala Harris. I mean, there's high school debate clubs that could put Kamala Harris in their place on a debate stage. And then she dropped out of that race, and then she went back to being an advocate for smaller government, for transparency, and against the deep state. Well, in this go round, in this election cycle, she actually began working with President Donald Trump on debate prep. Having debated Kamala Harris before and knowing what the Democrats' tricks and tactics are, Tulsi Gabbard was a huge boon to the Trump campaign team, worked with Donald Trump, began campaigning with him, and then made that announcement that she was ditching the Democrats and joining the Republican Party once and for all. Now, former Democrat Congresswoman from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, is the Republican DNI, Director of National Intelligence, in Donald Trump's second most conservative administration ever. That is truly bipartisanship. That is truly working together. And that is truly reaching across the aisle, something that the Democrats rarely ever do, except, of course, when they try to get Liz and Dick Cheney to talk smack about President Donald Trump. We received confirmation yesterday, finally, the worst kept secret out of the Trump transition office, that Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, is hereby nominated to the United States Secretary of State. Marco is a highly respected leader and a very powerful voice for freedom. He will be a strong advocate for our nation, a true friend to our allies, and a fearless warrior who will never back down to our adversaries. I look forward to working with Marco to make America and the world safe and great again. A mixed reaction once again from Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, but he will be heading up the State Department. He will be working very closely with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He'll be working closely with the National Security Advisor, who is also from Florida, Congressman Mike Waltz. He'll be working closely with President Donald Trump to make sure that the wars end, that there's peace back in the Middle East. That's a very important one of Donald Trump's agenda. And Donald Trump left a legacy of peace in the Middle East between Israel and the surrounding countries, the UAE, all those others. And it was disrupted in the last 4 years when Joe Biden became president and showed weakness on the world stage. And when you show weakness on the world stage, those people who are aggressive get aggressive. That's what we saw in Ukraine. We're starting to see it in China and Taiwan. And we saw it in the Middle East with Hamas and Hezbollah attacking Israel. Marco Rubio's premier job will be to end the war in Ukraine, broker peace in the Middle East, and maintain a lasting ceasefire in that region so that there will be stability and so that Donald Trump's legacy will be secure. Look, the cabinet is coming together. There's still a lot of people that have not yet been selected for the cabinet. As you can see here by this graphic the Washington Post puts forward, there are a ton of people. The Secretary of Treasury, we're still waiting on. Interior, Agriculture, Secretary of Commerce, Labor, Health and Human Services. Many people believe that Health and Human Services will be handed to RFK Jr., another Democrat, very prominent Democrat, who came forward, supported and endorsed President Trump, was a huge asset to his campaign, and has a mandate now from the American people to make America healthy again. Making him the Secretary of Health and Human Services seems like the most logical step. But again, Donald Trump likes to throw he likes to throw a wrench in the system and do the unexpected. Housing and urban development is yet to be decided. Transportation, Pete Buttigieg's job has yet to be named. Energy, education, veterans affairs. There's still many cabinet positions that we still do not yet have filled. There's other cabinet roles like the management and budget chair, economic advisors chair, the science advisor, small business administration advisor, a lot of folks who are still on the sidelines, and Donald Trump's transition team working very quickly. They want to make sure that on day one, they have all these people in place so that the Senate can begin confirming them. And speaking of the Senate confirmations, yesterday, the Senate rejected conservative Rick Scott. He lost in the very first ballot by 2 votes. He lost to John Cornyn and John Thune, and on the second ballot, John Thune won in an overwhelming majority. Basically, what happened was John Cornyn realized he wasn't going to win. He couldn't, even with Rick Scott's votes, make up the difference. So he stepped aside and asked everyone to just vote unanimously for John Thune, which puts, that way nobody's in a very difficult position and nobody has any hurt feelings or anything like that. But Rick Scott, the only true conservative, the only non-Mitch McConnell acolyte in the running for Senate Majority Leader, lost in the first round. So while the Republicans control the Senate, conservatives do not. And that could be an issue for President Trump as he tries to push forth his agenda. The Senate Republicans elected John Thune as leader, succeeding Mitch McConnell. And now President Trump will be working with John Thune, hopefully, to get those appointments through fairly quickly. That's the most important thing with these, and especially with an appointment like Matt Gaetz, for example, or Pete Hegseth, where a lot of Republicans are scratching their head. We need somebody who can rally the troops, who can whip the votes, and who can get every single senator, Republican senator, conservative or not, to help Donald Trump get going on day one. Remember, Donald Trump is in his second term. He only has 4 years, and every single minute, every single day counts. Senator Thune, by the way, has pledged sort of to work quickly with Donald Trump. Here's what he said when he was asked it.
As you know, the Senate has an advise and consent role under the Constitution, so we will do everything we can to process his noms quickly, get them installed in their position so they can begin to implement his agenda.
Okay, I mean, that wasn't an overwhelming. That was an overwhelming. Yes, we're going to do this. Yes, we're going to get his. It was a we'll do everything. We'll do everything that we possibly can to help his agenda go through. I mean, I guess. All right, we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. Donald Trump did send a congratulatory note to Senator Thune on being named the Senate Majority Leader, which brings us, by the way, to his big meeting with Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., the President of the United States. And this is a meeting that was long awaited, that was long heralded. They weren't sure exactly what was going to happen. One of the big moments from this meeting, one of the big things that people noticed about this meeting was not only were President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden in great spirits, both gentlemen smiling, very cordial to each other. There didn't seem to be any animus or any animosity whatsoever. The one thing that they noticed was that there was a huge fire burning in the fireplace behind them. And if you miss it, when they first got the pool camera in the room, there was a very brief statement from both of them.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President, thank you, Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome
Thank you
back.
very much. And thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Jim.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and you can hear that sound in the background. That was the roaring fire. That was the inferno that was in the fireplace. I don't know, whoever's job it was to build that fire said, look, I know this fire is going to be seen by just about everybody. I'm going to build the most massive fire. This is going to be the best gosh darn fire these people have ever seen. And it truly was impressive. Now, the other impressive thing is that Donald Trump, in what's supposed to be just a cordial get-together, almost a photo op or a ceremonial tradition, Donald Trump brought a list of questions, and the two gentlemen sat and talked with each other for 2 hours. 2 hours. Now, Donald Trump has a lot to say usually, so that's not surprising, and Joe Biden speaks very slowly. But it wasn't a regular standard run-of-the-mill ceremonial, let's have lunch and let people take photos in front of the massive fireplace. No, this was what seems like a policy meeting by President Trump. He wanted to get things done. He needed to get things done. He needed answers from Joe Biden, and Joe Biden apparently was very open to the idea. President-elect Donald Trump told the New York Post Wednesday that he and President Biden both really enjoyed seeing each other when they sat down for their historic post-election get-together. You know, it's been a long time, the 78-year-old said during a phone interview as he left Washington. It's been a lot of work on both sides, and he did a very good job with respect to campaigning and everything else. We really had a good meeting. President Trump said, we got to know each other again, and that it's going very smoothly. He told the New York Post of the transition. He also mentioned that they have a very, very good relationship and that they discussed two issues on which they have differed in the past: the war in Ukraine, which President Trump has promised to end almost immediately, and the ongoing war in the Middle East. I wanted to ask for his views, and he gave them to me, Trump told the Post. Also, we talked very much about the Middle East. Likewise, I wanted to know his views on where we are and what he thinks, and he gave them to me. He was very gracious. Trump also revealed that he and Biden are expected to see each other again just before his inauguration, which the Democratic incumbent has already said he would attend. The Oval Office is so beautiful, said Trump, and I do certainly look forward to coming back. We'll have that very, very nice meeting that takes place between two presidents sometime prior. You know, that takes place just prior to going in. So we'll have that, but this was a very enjoyable meeting. Indeed, it seems less like two adversarial people coming together. I mean, when you saw the campaign, when you saw the things that Joe Biden was saying about President Trump and his supporters, for example, calling them all garbage, you know, having himself and other of his surrogates in his campaign and in his staff refer to President Trump as Adolf Hitler and compare his rallies to Nazi rallies. I mean, all of these things, when you see these two together, these are just two happy, very cordial gentlemen walking through the White House. Here they are with Jill, who is also smiling. The First Lady joined them for a photo op and does not seem at all disgruntled or disgusted by the presence of Donald Trump, as you might think that she would be. Here they are both sitting in the room posing for photos. Joe Biden very happy. Donald Trump looks very at home and comfortable. They're looking at portraits of past presidents and discussing, warming themselves again by the massive fire. But this meeting, I think, was surprising to a lot of people. And it shows truly that there's maybe more animosity between Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and Kamala Harris than there is between Joe Biden and President Donald Trump. There will be more news coming out today, tomorrow, every single day. And that is why we bring you this podcast every single day. So you can get the news without the lies, without the spin, without the propaganda, the real truth, direct from the White House to my mouth to your ears. If you would like more commentary and if you'd like to know more news, not necessarily President Trump related, please download and listen to our daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. It's available on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube and Rumble. That happens live at noon Eastern every single day, 11 Central, or you can catch the recording at your convenience.